Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. We're going way back this time over 2,000 years to ancient Japan. We're talking about the Yayoi period, and you have sent in some awesome source material for this one stuff, from archaeological digs,
Yeah.
info about their agriculture, and even those, well, I gotta ask, those mysterious bronze bells.
Yeah, those bells really are something else, aren't they? Kind of head scratcher. But before we get ahead of ourselves and jump into the bells, gotta set the stage a little. You see, Japan, it didn't just appear out of thin air as we know it today. This Yayoi period, it marks a huge turning point. It's really when things started falling into place for what would become Japanese society as we see it now.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a huge shift. I mean, right before this Yayoi period, you have the Jomon people, and they were all about that hunter-gatherer life for like, what, thousands of years?
hmm
Talk about a different world compared to these Yayoi folks who settled down and started farming. So what happened? What flipped the script so drastically?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's not like we've got all the answers perfectly laid out, but the research you sent, it points to something pretty major migration. It looks like people were moving from mainland Asia over to those Japanese islands right around this time. And they brought with them a whole new way of life, new technology, different ideas, even new ways of doing things.
Hold on. So we're not just talking about a gradual evolution here. This sounds like a full-on shakeup, these migrations injecting all this brand new stuff onto the islands. And speaking of new trying, your research mentioned wet rice agriculture. Is this one of the big game changers we're talking about here?
Bingo. Now, I know wet rice agriculture doesn't exactly sound like the most thrilling topic, but believe me, it totally revolutionized their world. Just think about it. To grow rice like this, you need a whole system. Irrigation, people working together, a whole different level of organization. This wasn't just about what they were eating, it was a complete societal transformation in the making.
Wow, yeah, I see what you mean. Talk about a ripple effect. Bigger settlements popping up, maybe even some families starting to get more powerful than others if they were better at this whole rice farming thing.
Hmm.
Crazy how something as basic as a farming technique could change everything.
You got it. And you know what's really wild? It seems to have happened so fast. This Yayoi period just kind of pops up in the archaeological record, and boom, these advanced techniques and artifacts are just there. It's almost like, I don't know, a cultural fast forward moment.
Okay, so these migrations are shaking things up, bringing in new ideas, but what about the Jomon people who were already there? How they react to these newcomers who are basically turning their world upside down? Was it all friendly exchanges and sharing, or was it, well, a little more complicated than that?
That right there is a question that still has archaeologists scratching their heads. Just picture it. You've got these different groups with their own cultures, tools, ways of life, and suddenly they're colliding. Were they trading, learning from each other? Or was there friction, competition for resources? Who knows? The evidence, it kind of points in both directions.
Wow, so we've got cultural exchange, new tech, some societal drama unfolding, all happening in this ancient landscape.
And speaking of which, we can't forget those bronze bells you mentioned. Spill the beans. What's the deal with those?
All right, those bells coming right up. But first, let's circle back to those migrations, because they're kind of central to the whole Bronze Bell mystery and how they fit into the Yayoi story.
Yeah, those migrations, they're like a big question mark, especially with these crazy bronze artifacts just showing up out of nowhere. It's not like your average Yayoi person just woke up one morning and thought, I'm going to invent bronze casting today. Exactly. It would be pretty wild if they did, wouldn't it? But seriously, the fact that these sophisticated techniques, bronze casting, even wet rice farming itself, they just appear seemingly out of thin air, it really points to outside influence.
So where are we looking? You mentioned Korea. What makes archaeologists so sure about that connection?
Well, it's not just one single clue, but when you put it all together, it paints a pretty clear picture. Remember those bronze bells? Turns out they're not exclusive to Japan. Archaeologists have found almost identical bells in Korea, dating back to the Mumun pottery period, which just so happens to overlap with the early Yayoi.
Whoa, it's like finding two pieces of a puzzle separated by an entire sea. What are the odds? Are there any other artifacts that kind of seal the deal on this connection?
You bet. The Yayoi period also sees these really intricate bronze mirrors popping up. Not your average check your reflection kind of mirror either. These were works of art, super detailed and ornate. And guess what? Archaeologists have dug up strikingly similar mirrors in Korea from the same time period.
Bells, mirrors, it's like this ancient cultural exchange happening across the sea. This is amazing. But it's not all just about fancy artifacts, is it? You mentioned similarities in their farming too, right?
You're sharp. It goes way deeper than just objects. We
Yeah.
talked about how wet rice agriculture was a game changer for the Yayoi, right? Well, get this, the way they did it, like the actual techniques for building those paddy fields and irrigation systems, they're almost an exact match for what they were doing in southern Korea during that same Mumun period.
Kind of poetic, don't you think? Something as practical as farming, revealing all these cultural connections from way back then.
I know, right? It really shows you how connected these societies were, even with the sea between them.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just the techniques, too. Even the stuff they were growing hints at a link.
Oh, really? Now you've got me curious. What kind of crops are we talking about? If rice was this big innovation, wouldn't we expect to find just rice at Yayoi sites?
And that's where it gets even more interesting. So yeah, rice was a big deal, the main dish, you could say. But the Yayoi people, they weren't just betting on rice alone. They were hedging their bets, growing all sorts of other stuff too. Millet, beans, even melons. It's like a prehistoric farmer's market over there.
Yeah, got to keep their options open, right?
Yeah.
Smart move. But what does this whole mix and match farming have to do with Korea?
Well, here's the thing. That same approach, growing rice but also mixing in other crops, that was a signature move for farmers over on the Korean peninsula during the Mumun period. It's like the Yayoi people brought that whole diversity on the dinner plate idea with them from their homeland.
A culinary connection spanning centuries. That's
Yeah.
wild. I can totally imagine the Yayoi folks taking those ancient Korean recipes and adding their own little twist. Talk about fusion cuisine.
Now you're talking. And it just goes to show, right? Cultural exchange, it's not just about adopting new things wholesale. It's about blending and mixing and making it your own.
So we've got all these tantalizing parallels between the Yayoi and the Mumun cultures. But is there anything, like a specific site or something, that really brings it home for the folks listening? You know, something that really makes it feel real?
Oh, absolutely. There's one spot in particular, Songguni, down in southern Korea. It's a Mumun period site that's like taking a time machine back to the early Yayoi.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What kind of stuff are we talking about here? Give me the Songurni lowdown.
Okay, so picture this. You're on this dig at Songguni, right? Brushing away centuries of dirt, and you start uncovering the remains of these houses. But not just any houses. These were pit houses, dug partially into the ground. And guess what? They're almost identical to the ones the early Yayoi people were building over in Japan.
Whoa, it's like looking into a mirror across thousands of miles and thousands of years. That's incredible.
Right. And it gets even better. The burial practices at Songguni, they've got those Yayoi vibes too. Not to mention more evidence of that same diverse approach to farming we were just talking about.
So basically, Songgunyi is about as close as we're going to get to actually walking through a Yayoi village, even if it is technically in Korea.
You got it. It's about as close as archaeology can take us for now. But the finds there, they make it pretty clear the Yayoi people, or at least a good chunk of them, they likely started their journey in that part of the world.
Okay, so the Korean connection, pretty convincing stuff. But even with all this evidence, we're still missing pieces of the puzzle, right? I mean, these artifacts, these sites, they can only tell us so much.
Oh, for sure. We're always going to be piecing together the Yayoi story. There's tons we still don't know, and trust me, there are plenty more mysteries just waiting to be discovered.
Which honestly makes it that much more exciting.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the big picture stuff, migrations, technology, cultural exchange, but now I want to zoom in a bit.
Mhm.
What about daily life for the average Yayoi person? What did their homes look like? How was their society structured? Give me the inside scoop.
You're right. Sometimes it's those everyday details that really bring the past to life. Let's dive into that.
All right, so time travel time. Let's pretend we're strolling through a Yayoi village. What's catching our eye? What's life like in this time period?
Okay, so you're walking into this village, probably near a river or maybe the coast, and you'd see these houses, pit houses, dug partly into the ground, for insulation.
Older.
Yeah, pretty clever. And they'd be built with wooden walls, clay, a nice thatched roof made of reeds. Simple, but actually pretty spacious for a family.
Sounds cozy. But I'm guessing not every village was the same.
Right.
We touched on those settlements with moats and stuff. Doesn't exactly scream peace and harmony now, does it?
You're right. Those moats definitely suggest things were getting a bit more, well, complicated. As the Yaya population grew and resources became more precious, there were probably some disagreements, maybe even conflicts. Some places, like that Harunatsuji site, they even had walls. Talk about taking defense seriously.
So it wasn't all sunshine and rice paddies back then. There was a darker side to the Yayoi period, too.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that no matter how far back you go, people are people. There's always going to be that push and pull between working together and, well, not working together.
Makes you wonder what those conflicts were all about, doesn't it? Fighting over the best farmland, control of trade routes, maybe even different beliefs clashing.
Wouldn't it be amazing to know for sure? It's tempting to imagine, but unfortunately, archaeology can only give us so much. One thing's for sure, though, the Yayoi, they weren't all the same. Different beliefs, different ways of organizing their societies, even how they got along with each other, it probably varied quite a bit.
Speaking of how they organize themselves, did these migrations, all this new technology, did it change their social structures?
Most likely, yeah. Remember how we talked about wet rice agriculture being such a big deal? Well, to make that work, they needed to cooperate on a whole other level compared to their Jomon ancestors. That kind of change usually shakes up the social ladder.
So instead of those small, tight-knit hunter-gatherer groups, we're starting to see real leaders, families gaining more wealth, more influence, starting to sound a bit more like the societies we know today.
Exactly. And with that shift, you also start to see specialized roles popping up. Craftspeople, people dedicated to religion, warriors. Society is getting more complex.
It's really mind-blowing how this one thing, this wet rice agriculture, could set off such massive changes. It's like a domino effect.
It really shows you how everything's connected. Technology, society, culture, they all influence each other.
Which reminds me, you mentioned the Neolithic Revolution earlier. How does the Yayoi period fit into that whole global phenomenon?
Great question. The Yayoi period is a fantastic example of the Neolithic Revolution in action, just on a smaller scale. I mean, all over the world, the Fertile Crescent, the Americas, you name it, people were ditching the hunter-gatherer life and settling down to farm.
Wow, so the Yaya weren't alone in this. It was part of a much bigger story, a turning point for humanity, really,
Hmm.
driven by, well, us, our ability to innovate and adapt to new environments.
Exactly. And just like those other early farmers around the world, the Yayoi experienced those same ripple effects. More food, more people, villages turning into towns, and eventually even cities. It was a game changer.
Really puts things into perspective, right?
Hmm.
The Yayoi period, it might seem like just one isolated chapter in Japanese history, but it's really part of this huge saga of human progress, this evolution of how we live together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it highlights how interconnected we all are, even across thousands of years and miles of distance. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. It makes you realize how a simple change in climate or some new ideas blowing in from across the sea could completely change the course of a culture.
It's true. History isn't just a bunch of random events. It's all these threads woven together, causes and effects rippling out in ways we can't even imagine. And the Yayoi period, with all those migrations, the new inventions, the blending of cultures, it's the perfect example of that.
It really makes you appreciate the journey Japan's taken. From those first Yayoi farmers figuring out how to grow rice in those flooded fields to the modern nation we see today. What a legacy.
And hey, next time you're enjoying a delicious Japanese meal or admiring some incredible Japanese art, take a moment to remember those Yayoi ancestors. Their story is woven into the fabric of Japan itself.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Really makes you think. We've uncovered connections to the other side of the world, explored mysteries that still have archaeologists scratching their heads, and I think we've all come away with a deeper appreciation for this pivotal time in Japan's past. And who knows what other secrets are out there just waiting to be discovered. Something to ponder, right? Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through time. Till next time.